Game 7, Sunday night. Oklahoma City is an 8.5-point favorite, which I'm like a little surprised. Give this hat straight. There you go. Which 8.5. Like I watched Stephen A. after the game last night, and this is all pomp and circumstance, but he mentioned, hey, it should be a pick'em, and I feel like it really is going to be a nip and tuck affair, and here's why. There's numbers that back this up. Just to get into Game 7s before we get into last night's game, this is the 20th Game 7 in NBA Finals history. Like, think about that. This league's been around for a long time. This is the 20th, okay? And then we look at, it's the 5th, just the 5th in the last 35 years, okay? And the last 8 Game 7s have all been decided by single digits. So we have like not only is it a basketball game, but it's a bit of a celebration like going on Sunday night. These are rare occurrences. This isn't just a Game 7. It's an NBA Finals Game 7. And the timing, I feel, of last night's blowout really makes this interesting. And here's what I mean. I have seen teams, as recently as last year, we saw the Mavs just absolutely dismantle the Celtics, I think, and I wrote it down here. I think it was a 38-point win. Yeah, 122-84. I think that's 38. Of course, Dallas eventually goes on to lose the series. Now, that was Game 4, right? Like, and we have seen this in the NBA Finals before, like the, what was it? The Boston Massacre, I think. Like, there was a game in the 80s where, and if you look at those Celtics-Lakers finals, there were a few games where, one team would blow the other out of the water, but then they would recover. It's just a blowout, right? You flush it. But this is like really in the rear view here for the Oklahoma City Thunder. It's like, can they shake this off? And I don't know, the last time a team, and I did some digging in the crate for this one, but it makes a lot of sense because of the instance we're in. I believe that loss last night could have legs, and it was demoralizing. I also believe that the fact that the Pacers won in such a convincing fashion, I mean, very convincing, right? And they did it collectively, like they have been doing it all year long. 7 different guys hit a 3. We'll talk about Halliburton in a moment. But the last time a team, I think, here we go. 1978, right? The Bullets and the Sonics, they played back-to-back years in 77 and then 78. The Sonics had won in 77, and they were up again in 78, 3-2, okay? Now, the Sonics went on the road with an opportunity to win the championship in Landover, Maryland, to play the Bullets, where the Bullets used to play at the Cap Center. And the Bullets blew them out. They won 117-82. An absolute blowout. And the next game, Game 7, they went back to Seattle and they won the title. That's like the one specific example that you can relate this situation to. And could there be a hangover from from just getting destroyed? It kind of reminds me a little bit of like the 1986 World Series with the Mets after like the Bill Buckner disaster. Like, this is could be a real slingshot for the Pacers, and for momentum wise, belief wise, chemistry wise. We said it yesterday, and a lot of us had the Pacers DOA. Like going into this game at home because of the Halliburton injury, and because of just how well we felt like the Thunder were playing. There was a coronation that was supposed to take place last night. Well, the Pacers have put that on hold, right? And I thought it was really cool. Udonis Haslem had a great point last night, and I think he's been tremendous, by the way, for ESPN. Guy played 20 years in the NBA. I think he won 3 titles, more than qualified, and he's really good. And when a guy like this says something like what I'm about to tell you, it really gets my attention because, if I'm sitting here popping off or even if a columnist or somebody is saying, well, they let what the media had to say get in their head and that affected how they played. I'm always kind of like, settle down, dude. Like you really don't know. But when Udonis Haslem says that the Oklahoma City Thunder played as though they had been reading the headlines, their own headlines, right? And listening to all the pundits out there that talked about the fact that, hey, Oklahoma City's got this in the bag. They're going to win. Halliburton's hurt. And then they came out and looked lifeless. And for Udonis Haslem to say, that more than likely had an effect on how they played is sort of scary, because now you go into Game 7 where, and it is so important to note this with all the stuff going on the floor, because Halliburton talks about it after the game. He says, look, going into Game 7, we have to control what we can control. He said the narratives are going to be poison, right? It's so interesting. Like you never heard when I was a kid, or I never heard Magic Johnson say like the narratives are going to be toxic, or we can't, like, you had a couple newspapers. You had a couple columnists you were really familiar with, and beat writers, of course. You had your local television, and you had your big time like TV if you were on a big time game. Like outside of that, like, the local news, they wouldn't even give all the sports scores for like Major League Baseball and stuff. This is like in the 90s, or, your quick action news. If you're me in Philly, 6-minute sportscast wouldn't really get to everything, and then you had, of course, ESPN comes on the scene, more 24-hour sports networks. God bless you, Scotty. He's here today, kicking ass, obviously. And it's like we're in such a different time. So back to what Udonis said, I'm really interested to see how these teams will respond to, one, the absolute blowout that took place for the Thunder. Worth noting, it's the second time this year they had an opportunity to play for a trophy. I mentioned this earlier this week, feels like forever ago, how they lost to Milwaukee in that like NBA Cup. This was back months ago, but they did lose that game. And this is another opportunity now for them to win a trophy. How are they going to respond? And it's a major, major moment for SGA. If MVPs in the NBA Finals in Game 7, you got to come through. You have to come through. The last time we saw an MVP get beat in a Game 7 was actually in the last Game 7. It was when Steph Curry and Golden State lost to the Cavs, but he was playing LeBron, another MVP caliber guy. I don't know if you'd say that SGA is staring across the barrel at, Halliburton, we've had a lot of ups and downs with him, right? And I think that if he can stay consistent the way he's played this year, we always say superstar, whatever. He will be one of the faces of the NBA, superstar, whatever you want to call it. I feel like there's a little bit more time left, or, just a body of work I'd like to see him stack up. But for SGA, man, you can cement your legacy right here tonight because you're there. I always go back to my Dan Marino example, and it's a terrifying example. It really is. Marino goes to that 84 Super Bowl to play the 49ers, has an amazing year, his second year, threw like 48 touchdowns, broke a record. Nobody could stop the Dolphins. They end up going to play, it was at Stanford Stadium. So they play in Palo Alto at Stanford Stadium where they play the 49ers. Marino's first Super Bowl, of course, and they get smoked. And again, as a real little guy, and I was super little, so one of the first Super Bowls I ever remember, I can remember thinking, because I was like a football fan, I adored the sport at the time, I'll see Dan Marino again in the finals or in the Super Bowl. There's no way I won't see him again. It was a given, right? Well, it never happened again. And for SGA, these moments, and I don't have to have been, I don't have to have played in a Super Bowl or played in the NBA Finals to know this. I know this from looking in the history books. These moments can be fleeting. You're the MVP. You have Game 7 at home. You're a young man. Your career is like a rocket ship right now. This is an opportunity for you to be part of NBA history, to be part of the lore, right? And sure, Indiana, it is more of a basketball state and, Indianapolis, the town, whatever, all than we can ever imagine. Okay, great. But we've got a particular player here who is one of the best in the NBA, who sometimes is overlooked because I think where he plays and also where he's from, being from Canada. But this is it, man. This is the opportunity for you to become a poster boy, not just in the NBA, but in my everyday life, right? Like commercials, turning around, billboards, ads, whatever, social media, boom, you're scrolling, you see them. This is one of those moments. And there is a lot, obviously, at stake. And I can tell you one thing I look forward to, or I would look forward to if I was a Thunder fan. And it's the same thing I said last night ahead of the game before, or 2 days ago, ahead of Game 6. And it's a Doc Rivers quote, and it's so right. Role players in the playoffs play big at home. They do. And we saw it last night. McConnell comes off the bench again, 17. Nembhard Nembhard had 17. Toppin had 20. I think McConnell had 12 or 14. And man, you feel that dude's presence every time he steps on the court. And then Halliburton, who was, of course, a game time decision, finds a way to be effective and threatening. And we talked about Halliburton. He's not aggressive, right? Boy, how times have changed. I mean, he comes out with the gimpy calf and he launches like 4 shots early. And I don't know if that was like if he wanted to test the waters or get it out of his system, but he found his way. They missed their first 8 shots, I think the Pacers did. And a key timeout with 3 minutes gone in the game, and this is why Rick Carlisle's awesome, he calls a timeout and just sort of settles everybody down. And the Pacers go on to erase a big first half or first quarter deficit, and then just it's bananas in the second quarter, and then they don't look back after that. The Halliburton, the way that he was handled by Rick Carlisle, one, not pulling him out of the game after he had hoisted a bunch of shots and missed them. You might be thinking, oh man, is he not okay? Whatever. And of course he gave him rests, but he didn't like sit him. And then believing in him, continuing to, it was very clear, like, dude, Halliburton, you got the green light. Like, I don't care how you're feeling. If you're out there, you got the green light. And eventually he caught fire or enough fire for that to become a threat, for that to be something that Oklahoma City had to worry about. And defensively, getting into this game, the way that they're defending, can you tell I watched the whole game? The way they're defending SGA is pretty amazing. It seems like it switches almost every game. They're trying to wear him down. They're trying to make him tired. And they're sending, it's like a blitz. And they're sending all these different guys like, he's man-to-man with somebody, and then all of a sudden, here comes Siakam. All of a sudden, here comes Nembhard. And it's brilliant, and clearly it's working. So, you can't necessarily shut him down, but you can certainly keep him on his heels. And, I can't wait for Game 7. I'm super excited. I have to admit, in the spirit of honesty, that I when the Pacers were up 2-1 and they still were getting odds, I think plus 200, I put a couple shekels on the Pacers to win the series. Now, I had all but kissed that goodbye, right? Any chance of that? But now we're back in business, baby. So not only do I get to watch a Game 7, right, where I just can't wait because I love Game 7s. I mean, think of, as a kid, when there was a game, that was, Game 7s were permission for me to stay up past my bedtime. Game 7s or national championship games, the one and done, I couldn't, a Game 1 or a Game 2, I got to go to bed. My parents ran a pretty tight ship, but a Game 7, at 6, 7, 8 years old, we could ride it out. And I still get that feeling, right? It's a party. Sunday night is going to be a party. And I cannot wait. A celebration, a Game 7, just the 20th Game 7 in NBA Finals history, the 5th in the last 35 years. And the good news, it should be a close game. The last 7 have been decided by single digits. Odds makers think differently, though. Oklahoma City, an 8.5-point favorite. I can't wait till Sunday night. We're going to find out exactly what goes down.